Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we're going to have a bit of a controversial video, but hey, sometimes you got to do it. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the Dreamerspro channel, a short clip channel that we have pinned in the comments. So let's get into this topic here. So funny enough, this particular segment is related to a show we actually produced a number of days ago. And during that episode, we actually produced that show on May 20th, which I believe was today's Monday. So I believe that was on Saturday. Just this Saturday, we produced the show on our channel, which was centered on what the topic was essentially. The topic was, we asked the harsh reality of how the Boston Celtics totally messed up themselves by letting go of Ime Udoka. This is the topic that we produced on our channel. Well, as you guys know, or maybe you've been under a rock, the Boston Celtics find themselves in a 0-3 deficit. And as someone that watched that game yesterday, I was in total. I mean, you know what? Again, I don't know what to say about these Miami Heat, but I was watching that game yesterday. I mean, it got out of hand. It got out of hand. You had Bam Adebayo putting dudes in a spin cycle. You had Jimmy Butler talking trash, pointing it. I mean, it was just incredible. I mean, at this point, they just took these guys to the shed, man. Like the Miami Heat took the Boston Celtics to the shed, and they beating the hell out of them, right? But in that show that we produced, I said that were the Boston Celtics too hasty to let Ime Udoka go? I said, I wonder if they had kind of kept that thing in house and they maybe just suspended him without releasing any information to the public, maybe they would have been able to bring him back. Because now clearly what you're seeing is that they're missing him, especially a coach that was able to turn this team around on the defensive side of the floor. Because prior to him taking over the head coaching job from Brad Stevens, that team was just about, I believe, a game or two below 500. The minute they took over the team, I believe they went 28. I could be wrong. I think they had a 28-15 record, if I'm not mistaken. And they finished with the #1 rated defense in the NBA. And you saw that on full display in round one against the Brooklyn Nets, where they absolutely stifled Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, right? So the Boston Celtics were on that type of tier. I also brought up a similar point when I said that the Brooklyn Nets, who were very interested in hiring Ime Udoka, but decided not to do it because they wanted to pander to whatever group of people out there. I said, wait a minute, do you want to pander and deal with, and pander and then not hire a good coach, or instead hire this guy, take some of the public jabs or whatever barbs that people are going to be throwing at you, and then ensure that you have a good head coach going forward? They obviously did not do that. And then now the Houston Rockets ended up picking them up. So just today, I was listening to a segment on ESPN, First Take, and they were talking about the Boston Celtics collapse. And then it came to one of the parts where they asked the Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins, do they feel that the Boston Celtics should consider firing Joe Mazzulla, the 34-year-old new head coach? And when it became Stephen A. Smith's time to talk, I was quite surprised to hear that Stephen A. Smith actually took it as an opportunity to take the Boston Celtics to task for ultimately messing up the situation with Ime Udoka and essentially letting him go. So what I want to do is I want to quickly play what Stephen A. Smith had to say for you guys. I want to play it for you now, and then we're going to come back and react to his comments. Let's take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith had to say.
The moment where I'm going to tell you that there is a word that comes to my mind, Molly and Perk, that I want everybody to embrace. Justice. This is justice for the Boston Celtics. I'm talking to Wick Krausbeck. I'm talking to Boston Celtics ownership. I feel very adamant about that. Ime Udoka's actions, his transgressions, are not something we need to revisit. He was wrong. If he had gotten fired, no problem. If he had been kept, no problem. But for this organization to handle that situation in the classless fashion that they did, as far as I'm concerned, having a press conference where you said nothing nor did anything but bring even more attention to Ime Udoka, all right, and his transgressions. I have said it countless times over these airwaves, and I'll repeat it one last time. all of us in this business know plenty of folks in the world of sports, for sports teams, that have stuff going on in the office. It was an HR matter. We know people who've been fired, Molly, and Perk knows I'm telling the truth, who've been fired for doing the same thing. We never heard a word. But now everybody know what Ime Udoka did because of the way the Boston Celtics handled it. And then we want to be sensitive, obviously, to the other party, as we should. But nobody thought about the lack of sensitivity to Nia Long.
Come on.
And what attention it brought to her. And how her name and her child were raked through the coals, put out on public display. They didn't think about that.
Come on.
They didn't care. And so for me, when I think about that and I think about what's happening now, maybe it's because you have the coach you shouldn't have. Because he should have been an assistant on the bench. Maybe even though he knows basketball backwards and forwards and he can coach, all right, because he did have a good season. He wasn't a bad coach or by any stretch of the imagination. But it's clear he wasn't Ime Udoka. All right? Mm-hmm. And so when maybe you're suffering when you're suffering. Remember, Jaylen Brown spoke out about it. But they were muzzled to some degree. Marcus Smart spoke out about it, but they were muzzled to some degree. Because not only did you make that decision about Ime Udoka, you insisted that the players not even comment about it, nor speak to him.
Come on.
I mean, this is what they did. And so when you think about it from that perspective, and you look at what's happening to the Boston Celtics right now, I'm sad for Jason Tatum. I love Jason Tatum. Love him to death. Jaylen Brown is that dude. It's a real brother right there. Got nothing but love for him. It's a bad time for him. It's a bad time for them. They don't look good right now based on their performance on the basketball court. Those are good brothers. Marcus Smart is a good brother. They got a whole Al Horford. They got a whole bunch of good brothers on the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics organization is a damn good organization. But leadership from the top in that particular issue, all right, stained this franchise. And as far as I'm concerned, it should for years to come. It is justice what is happening to them right now. That's right, I said it.
So you heard what he had to say. Now here's my thoughts to what he had to say, and I'm going to make it very concise. Stephen A. Smith is making it clear, as I made it crystal clear in the past. What Ime Udoka did not only was wrong, it was stupid. Because you put yourself in a situation where you can embarrass yourself, you can embarrass your organization, you can embarrass your reputation by putting yourself in that type of disgusting situation. So Ime Udoka was wrong just for his own stupidity alone. He deserved all of the backlash that came his way. So no one is absolving him of what he had to do. However, this case is nuanced, and we're going to discuss it with the nuance. The nuance of this particular issue was this. What he did was wrong, but he did it with someone in which it was a consensual relationship. So therefore, he wasn't any pariah or any kind of predator. No, it was nothing like that. It was all consensual. And if it was consensual, the question Stephen A. Smith and many others were asking is, why is he being made the face of this? Why is he being made the face of this? Then you had some people that thought they were Sherlock Holmes, and instead they were just some dude. Basically, they were saying, well, he did it with a superior, and then he did it with a subordinate, and no one stopped to ask the question, well, how do you know he did it with a subordinate when they haven't released the person's information? Just to show you that people wanted to believe what they wanted to believe. It's what it's subordinate. Do you know who the person is? So how did we come to that conclusion that it was a subordinate? And my major issue with it was I didn't want the face of workplace misconduct to be some black dude, and when everybody thinks about that in the NBA, to think of Ime Udoka, when in fact it was between two consenting adults. That's the other thing. So I think what Stephen A. Smith was saying is pretty crystal clear. If you're going to fire the guy, fire him. If you're going to keep the guy, keep the guy. This is besides the fact that you know what he did. If you know what he did, if you're going to fire him, and we move on. If you're going to keep him, you keep him. But he said to keep him in limbo, where you're not really firing him and you're not really keeping him. You then jeopardize yourself. And the point he's making is this, and it's a simple one. Had the Boston Celtics decided to handle it internally, would they have been able to kind of discipline him quietly, or discipline him by suspending him without putting out a press conference, putting out all that information out there, and then found a way to bring him back instead of doing what they did? And I think that's what Stephen A. Smith was alluding to. Now, is Stephen A. Smith right? I don't know. It depends on who's listening to what he had to say. I'm just interpreting what he said, and I'm reiterating some of my views. But it looks like, and according to what Kendrick Perkins had to say earlier this season, maybe, I don't know, maybe because Joe Mazzulla is a very young guy, he's 34 years old, around my age, so I'm not here to be knocking no dude, trying to build his career. But maybe, giving him the head coach tag was a little bit too premature. But then again, that's not my place to say that. That's a point that Kendrick Perkins was making. I just wanted to report on the stance that Stephen A. Smith took today on ESPN as it pertains to the Boston Celtics, and the question that was thrown in his direction on whether or not he feels that it's time for the Boston Celtics to consider firing Joe Mazzulla. So what I want to know from you guys is simply this. Number one, what do you think about what Stephen A. Smith had to say? And number two, do you think that the Boston Celtics could have handled this situation differently and maybe found a way to retain Ime Udoka, or in fact that, no, listen, the situation was too messy and there's no way you retain a guy like that? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts in the comment section and we catch you on the next show.